This video series attempts to provide an esoteric analysis of the Holy Scriptures, offering an antidote to the distortions promoted by literalist and uninitiated readings. Rooted in the principles of Empyrean dragon magic and aligned with the Illuminist mission of advancing humanity toward unity through rational spiritual gnosis, the series invites viewers to embark on a progressive interpretive journey. Each new video builds upon the last, creating a cumulative hermeneutic architecture that reveals the scriptures as a coded metaphysical narrative for magic and self-realization. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. Genesis 1 verse 7. Before we explain the meaning of this verse, let us briefly recap what has been created so far. We discussed how God, the collective hive mind and unified field of all minds and principles, representing absolute universality, is the prime mover who resides in the eternal domain of perfect being. The very first thing that had to be created for God to understand itself was a holographic projection in the form of the heavens and the earth. The heavens symbolize the mental domain of becoming, while the earth represents the space-time domain of becoming. In other words, we have God, being, who projects itself as a dual-aspected monism of mental and physical domains of becoming, yet remains outside of it. There was only darkness then, and the Spirit of God hovered on the waters of the deep. We've explained how the Spirit of God is awareness, which hovers over all the unconscious content and potentialities of God. For God to self-realize, He must become conscious of the unconscious. Hence, the next thing that was created was light, and it was separated from the darkness. We've explained how this light does not stem from a physical source, but rather represents a metaphysical light, symbolizing intelligence, reason, conscious understanding, and the divine logos. This sealed the first day of creation. However, we've explained how this is not a literal day, but rather the first stage of man's spiritual unfoldment. It symbolizes the mind being illuminated by spiritual consciousness, leading to self-realization. Furthermore, we've explained how the first day of creation seals the first Hermetic principle that all is mind. The universe is mental. The next step is the creation of a vault, or firmament, and the separation of waters from waters. This firmament is not a physical sky, but rather a metaphysical membrane that separates the waters, the unconscious contents, and potentialities of the mind. To put it differently, the firmament stands as a frequency filter within the vast oceanic field of mathematical waves. This is a necessary condition for the mind's differentiation. Now, we arrive at the 7th verse. The waters are separated above and under. According to Judeo-Christian interpretation, this is the separation of the sky from the waters. But as we have seen, this is incorrect. The separation of the waters is a coded reference to the Second Hermetic Principle. As above, so below. As below, so above. The waters are the primordial chaos, the undifferentiated unconscious potential, the vast sea of unmanifest frequency. This undifferentiated unconscious potential is then separated above and below by a metaphysical structural boundary, a firmament. What is really happening here is the differentiation of the higher spiritual mind, nous, divine thought, and the lower material mind, soul entangled in matter and becoming. The Spirit of God, the awareness, stands in the middle and hovers over these waters. It is either attracted to the lower dimensional domain of matter, desires, temptations, and fragmented thoughts, or to the higher idealistic and rational contemplation of the divine logos. This is what sets the dual-aspected monism of the mind, its ability to descend into matter or ascend into spirit. The higher waters remain subtle and spiritual. The lower waters condense into manifestation. The higher waters refer to philosophical and mathematical contemplation of reality, while the lower waters are dense, chaotic, and low vibration. This separation of waters allows the differentiation of mathematical frequency waves from which intelligibility and hierarchy emerge. Without such distinction, all frequencies, lower and higher, are blurred together in one soup, so to speak. Another point is that the separation of the waters distinguishes the collective transpersonal unconscious, higher self, collective patterns, archetypes, etc., and the personal unconscious, instincts, drives, repressed contents. This allows the psyche to differentiate levels of depth so that individuation can proceed. Since nothing yet exists, this is God setting the stage for its own individuation. The Second Hermetic Principle ensures that the waters above and below are the same in substance and essence, mathematical frequency waves of unconscious content, yet different in degree of order, resonance, and vibration. Notice the progression. Verse 2 is about chaos and undifferentiated waters, pure unconscious. In verses 3 and 4, light, consciousness arises and is separated from the darkness, unconsciousness, unawareness. Now consciousness establishes higher and lower realms through a hierarchical order of the differentiated waters, unconscious contents. The waters above deal with the transcendent unconscious, i.e., the collective unconscious in its archetypal, luminous dimension. It is the domain of the self, higher archetypes, the gods, and numinous symbols. These archetypes are not yet consciously apprehended. The waters below reflect the personal and immanent unconscious in its instinctual, shadowy dimension. Instincts, repressed drives, and complexes are all part of the waters below. Although hidden, it is oriented toward the pull of matter and inertia. Another aspect given to the firmament as a separator of waters is faith. Faith stands here as a protective shield to ensure trust in the process, even before the mind is fully spiritually actualized. This is faith in correspondence, faith in the reflection of higher order in lower realms. Reason, light, is too weak at this point. The darkness is still vast. Faith that there is a higher guiding order, ensuring the psyche does not collapse back into the waters of undifferentiated unconsciousness. Ultimately, faith is a subjective feeling of trust in a mathematical, rational partition of an infinite frequency spectrum into domains, higher, lower. The order is still unseen. The work is incomplete, and the firmament separating the waters above from the waters below provides the inner confidence of a rational structural necessity of the mind to endure the vast ocean of unformed potential without collapsing back into chaos. This is not faith in a supernatural being common to the Abrahamic tradition, but rather trust in a mathematical order and divine intelligence that is responsible for intelligent design by the laws of reason, ensuring this is not a nihilistic, random, or chaotic design.